noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and the Detroit metro area. And this is CarEdge Live for Tuesday, May 13th, with me, Ray, and well, not Zach, but Phil. How are you today, Mr. Phil?
Mr. Ray, I am awesome. I am so glad to be here with you today.
You know, you stole Z's background, or Z stole your background, or
I
you
will
kids are
fight and
sharing the
say
same
it is
house.
the other way around. He stole it from me.
No, maybe we
Come on,
have
I'm
this.
always associated with the piano.
No,
That's it.
you always have been. Yeah, I was
Yes.
just thinking maybe CarEdge has some communal housing that I don't know about, and
You know what? If Zach has some housing that is as nice as this, sign me up.
okay, yeah, maybe that's something we can do in the future. So
Absolutely.
so Phil, I want to number one, thank you for being here today,
Sure.
and filling in for Mr. Zach, and
Absolutely.
before, or I don't know, I guess a lot of our viewers get upset if we don't get to the headline first. So I suppose we should just cut to
Get
the
into it.
chase and find
Let's
out
do it.
how Honda just shocked, I'm assuming, the automobile industry. Yeah.
It's done. It's over. Should we even do a show? I mean, it's all done.
Uh, Perhaps maybe Justice can pull up the article so we can see it. And
Yep, let's do
here
it.
you go, ladies and gentlemen. Honda Motor reports a 76% plunge in the operating profit in a huge earnings miss.
That's no surprise.
Is a 76% plunge? Is that a lot, Phil?
It's not a little. 76% is quite a lot. Obviously, the big impact here is the trade or the tariff policies, right?
And yet this is for their year end that ended March 31st. Tariffs weren't even a thing at that point.
They definitely weren't. I thought this was them trying to project what they're going to be for a 2026 outlook.
Well, I think they've altered their guidance for 2026, but I believe
yes.
this was their fiscal year end of year report, which is, revenues were up. It's typically not a good sign, at least as far as I can tell, business wise.
Right.
To have revenues go up, I think it was 6%
Yeah,
and
so they pretty much met, what their revenue estimates were going to be.
But their profits on
Plunged.
that 6% increase in revenues plunged dramatically. I didn't read anything in there that said, well, gee, it was because of the costs that were associated when we initiated a chat with Nissan to see if we could put together I mean, that's pretty significant.
It is. It is.
And I believe in the article they talked about how they're going to move some production from Mexico to Indiana to try and avoid some of the tariffs. And here's what I find interesting. Honda has had production facilities and plants in the United States forever.
They do. One of the biggest ones is the Accord, right? In
Marysville.
Marysville. Yep.
Yeah. And it's astonishing to me that companies as large as Honda, with the type of billions of dollars of investments that they've made in the United States for, I don't know, I want to say the last 30, 40 years, maybe more, that the threat of tariffs could have such a significant impact in what the future holds for them, considering they are, I almost think of them as an American company
I kind of
because
do
of
too.
their presence
Yep.
in Ohio.
Yep.
How help me with this? How can this possibly be?
They they are really obviously having a big squeeze on their margins, right? And they really need to think quickly about how they're going to do business here in the future, because tariffs are going to be the biggest impact on profitability, and it's really going to be a mission critical type thing, right? And they're going to need to expect more, to build more here in the states, and they're going to have to tighten their belts on how they're going to be doing business, and part of this is how they work with suppliers, and to make sure that they're working with suppliers here in the U.S. too. I mean, it's going to be a large, um, it's rather large for them to have to now quickly get a plan together to get themselves at a profitable point that they need to be at.
It is, when you think about the billions that have been invested in North America, and so North America is obviously Canada and Mexico as well.
Yes.
But the manufacturing facility in Marysville, Ohio, that's been there. I don't know. I want to say,
A
um,
while.
yeah, but probably at least 30 years, maybe more.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and then the billions that were invested in Ontario, where I think they build the CRV,
Hmm.
and then they also have facilities in Mexico. I
Hmm.
mean, they probably have 50-60 billion dollars or more invested in North America, and yet,
100%.
yeah, and even with all that money invested, the threat of tariffs is not only frightening to them, but just exacerbating a potential huge loss of profits going forward. Here, Dan says Honda came to Ohio in 1982.
1982. Yep.
I'm not good with math, but 82 to 2000 is 18 years. So
Yep.
that would be 43 years. And yet they're getting clobbered profit wise on potential tariffs. Um, I just, for the light, I mean, 43 years they've been in this country building their product, and yet they're still going to get how many jobs do they provide, either
Oh gosh.
between their American workers that work in those facilities, plus the suppliers who employ people who supply them with the parts and everything that are necessary to actually build those cars.
It's huge. It's huge. Thousands of people are impacted. Right. I mean, from and when you think about it in such big terms like that, you now really start to understand, and not that you really don't, but how impactful these reactionary tariffs have been, and what kind of pressures it puts on the industry to make these quick decisions that are going to impact thousands of lives, not to mention the actual industry, right? As we've all talked about.
Oh, yeah, because we can see that the issues are not just issues for the automotive industry in Asia.
Hmm.
They are issues for the automotive agency global industry
Yeah.
globally. Um,
Yep.
we know the issues that VW is having, and Mercedes Benz is having, and BMW is having. So
Hmm.
and every one of those companies that I just mentioned have made huge investments in assembly plants here in the United States, and
Hmm.
yet they're all getting clobbered. Um,
They are. They
it's
are.
it, and this ties into even the original headline for today's show, before the Honda shocked the industry and came out with those financial numbers. The original headline for today's show was "It's over for Nissan,"
Yeah.
and the reason it's over for Nissan is their new CEO has just unveiled Nissan's plan to how they're going to survive. And here you can look at Nissan has posted its biggest net loss in 25 years. Now, in 2000, things weren't good when they had that huge loss, but they did bounce back. They've had a rough stretch since 2020, and it just got worse in 2024. And part of the plan to save Nissan, it's staggering when you think about it, because it was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks ago where they announced they're gonna lay off between 9,000 and 10,000 people. Okay, and that they're going to close some of their assembly facilities worldwide. They were going to close, I think, 3 of them. And now they're talking, or go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just, maybe you're kind of alluding to this or getting to it, but now they're saying 19,000 jobs to be cut and 7 plant closures.
Out of 17.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That is a significant percentage of plants that are being closed.
It's huge. Like, they're sitting on these plants that they're not completely utilizing, obviously, because they're not selling cars and making cars. So, a lot of this, I mean, it's good. It's necessary, but it's unfortunate that all this has to happen, with all these, with the job cuts and whatnot.
Well, but for it to change so dramatically in 4 to 6 weeks, from 9 to 10,000 job cuts and 3 facilities being closed, to almost 20,000 job cuts and 7 facilities being closed. I mean, that really indicates just how underutilized their production facilities are.
Exactly.
And worldwide. And one of the things that initially they were going to use to their advantage was the fact that their facility, and I believe it's in Tennessee, is so underutilized, where they build the Rogues, that they're going to build more of them, and be able to export some of them from the United States to other markets around the world. So that they could finally bring their utilization of that plant up to maybe, I don't know, 55, 60% of what it totally could do. But you're talking closing 7 out of 17 assembly facilities. It's
staggering. It's huge.
And I think the point he made was, well, we're just trying to right size the company for what it is that we sell. Whoa. How'd they get so far off the path, one wonders.
It does wonder. Well, apparently no one really wants to buy a Nissan anymore. Is it, I don't really follow too much about Nissan or really care too much about the product. But could it be quality issues? Could it be just other other brands just trying to outpace them, right? And they're now just realizing in the very short term what this trade, if you want to call it a trade war type of environment, is going to impact them. And as you're saying, to right size, but they also have to mitigate the risks that are now involved with the tariffs. I'm sorry to keep bringing up the tariffs, but it is impacting these Japan companies. And not to mention, one thing else that I read is that the value of the yen is going up as compared to the dollar. So that's going to impact their bottom line and their profitability of exporting vehicles and doing business in North America.
The sad reality is that my first job in the car business was at Iannaco Motors in Berlin, New Jersey. And that was a Subaru and Dodge store back in 1977. So
Mhm.
that wasn't much of a store. But and I wasn't there all that long, but I cut my teeth a little bit there. And ultimately, one of the people that I worked with there was offered a position at it wasn't a brand new facility, but it was a brand new Datsun point because it was
Mhm.
Datsun back then.
Mhm.
And that point was to be opened right outside of Atlantic City, right after the advent of casino gaming was passed.
Mm.
So I moved to the Atlantic City area to work in a Datsun store, which is uh, the predecessor to Nissan. So
Mhm.
I was there for 12 years.
Mhm.
So there is a certain angst and a certain level of love for the Datsun Nissan products that I represented in the late 70s and throughout the 80s. I left
Mhm.
there. I started in June of 1977, and I left there at the end of July in 1989. So I was there for a little over 12 years.
Oh, wow.
So Nissan kind of meant everything to me. And,
Yeah.
at that time, they made some wonderful products and they were a pretty popular brand. They were never as popular as Honda and they
Right.
were never as popular as Toyota. But
Yep.
something happened where they just absolutely lost their way. And I don't know what it was, but they have fallen on really tough times and some bad decisions, obviously. But,
A, a
think
very
about it.
good amount of both.
In my day, I mean, they invented the Pathfinder
Mhm.
during during my career with that Nissan store. Um, which was a pretty solid, rugged SUV type vehicle. I remember them driving it through South America in one of their commercials. I mean, they made some really great vehicles. The Z car, the original Z
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
510, the
Yes.
810 that later became the Maxima.
Yep.
And they made some absolute losers, like the Stanza wagon.
Yep.
Where I used to ask people when they were looking at it, I said, you need to get really close to it. They go, well, why? Because the closer you are, the harder it is to recognize exactly how ugly it is. Uh, you can't take it all in when you're
Yeah.
right next to it.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but you look today, and they just I don't know how they're going to survive.
I think something needs to reinvigorate what their brand is, and they really need to, you know, they it might be a rebranding of sorts, but part of it is to, in my opinion, is really to start to bring some energy around the brand and to really show that they can build a quality product.
Yes,
And now it's going to become, well, how do you get there? How do you maximize capital that you have and maximize profits? And part of the issue is that they're going to have to build here in the U.S., so that's going to impact capital and profitability. And two, now moving to another, or pivoting to, if you recall, Honda and Nissan at a point were going to try to merge, right?
yes,
And
yes,
as we know, that isn't going to happen. Um, but I believe there are probably some opportunities where these OEMs can share platforms. They can they could potentially share factories and produce and get higher utilization out of these factories. But they really need to start thinking strategically, which I think that they are. But it really just more pointed towards how they're going to be able to maximize that on a cooperative level.
It's easier to think strategically when you're not bleeding money. It is
Yep.
so much more difficult to make production decisions or design decisions when you don't have the money to back it up anymore.
It's true.
There were times when Nissan came out with produced cars that people wanted, that were desirable. The Z car, the 200SX was another vehicle that was the 510 was a very popular vehicle at one time.
Yeah.
The Maxima, as they described it, a 4-door sports car. These were popular vehicles, and to try and play off of their history and bring some of those back when you don't really have the money to do it, it just becomes infinitely harder. Now, I do know from the article concerning Nissan that they are trying to partner with Honda and Mitsubishi to help utilize some of the production facilities at their American plants.
Correct.
So, perhaps that will help, because, every one of their manufacturing facilities worldwide is underutilized. If you need to lose 7 out of 17, then all 17 are underutilized.
Absolutely correct. Yep. So they're going to have to start to think about how they're going to cooperatively utilize. And I think they'll get there. They're going to have to get there.
Well, there's a difference between they're going to have to get there and they're going to get there. Okay.
True.
Yeah. I think everybody within that organization today now completely understands how dire their situation is. And if they'd like to survive, they have to get there. But is it too late to get there? And that's really, to my thinking, the most important question to be asked. Are they so far behind the 8 ball that they can't get there? Or will somebody come up and provide them with enough capital so that they can survive this again? And
it may be the latter. It may be the latter, but they also face headwinds too, Ray, on the whole EV challenge. Now, I know that currently right now, EVs are they're not growing at a rate that originally was thought.
Yes.
And I'm not downplaying or hitting on an EV. I'm leasing an EV right now to give it a shot to see what that's like. But that needs to be part of their plan, and and how that's going to affect their bottom line and the capital that they need to put into R&D and to develop the products. And is it right? Is it just them, or are they going to need to have a collab, with Honda or Mitsubishi as they pursue EV hybrids, whatever the case may be? Like that's a big part of this too.
Yeah, they have kind of fallen by the wayside when it comes to the hybridization of EVs, and their whole, one of the demises has always been, and Justice has warned me not to say this word, has been their issues in the past with the CVT transmissions that they use.
They're horrible.
That doesn't mean that they haven't improved them since the dark ages of all this. But they are, in my mind, they are like the Chrysler of Japanese brands, in the sense that they didn't appeal to the same Honda and Toyota buyers because their credit wasn't as good as the comparable Honda and Toyota buyers. And so they became the Asian brand of last resort for a lot of people, much like
true.
Chrysler was the American brand of last resort for a lot of people.
Yep.
And I don't, much like Stellantis, I don't know. Nissan did not raise their prices nearly as much as Stellantis did with its brands, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram and Dodge.
No.
So the loss of consumers had to be entirely based upon the perceived lack of quality of the vehicles that they were producing. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely would. Absolutely. We heard a lot about poor quality around Nissan. We know that. And until that gets better, I don't see that the perception of the brand is going to get any better. That of course is another headwind that they have to start to think about, and how they QA all of their brand or all of their vehicles.
Well, they've been accused of using cheap materials on the interior of the vehicles, and but their pricing is
not horribly out of the.
It's uber affordable compared to their competitors.
It kind of is.
But the perception of the product is so bad that even at those competitive price points, they can't seem to attract the buyers anymore.
And that's the thing. Perception's reality. We all know that. So until, again, they can reinvigorate the brand itself and create a different perception while also maintaining higher quality, is going to get them back on the board.
Well, from someone who cut his teeth in the industry and spent 12 years at a Nissan store, I truly hope that they figure out how to do it.
I think they will. And someone else just mentioned here in the chat, JMac did, like, warranties. Back your brand with a strong warranty. Like, to say to the public that you can, like, even if you have to say a 4-year, warranty on it or something like that, than the standard 3-year 36, back your product.
Or even if you said, we understand that the perception out there is that our CVT transmissions have not been the highest quality. We will back the transmissions on our vehicles for 10 years and 120,000 miles, whichever occurs first.
Yep.
And if they did something like that, suddenly a customer would say, even if it goes bad,
it's a good risk.
Replaced with a brand new one that's probably better than what was in it to begin with. So the customer at least feels protected.
Absolutely.
Hyundai did that years and years ago when they first went to the 10-year, 120,000 mile powertrain warranty available to the original owner only. But the perception with the public was, well, they really back their car, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm covered for 10 years, 120,000 miles. Not if you're second owner, but it is the perception. And you would think that one of the ways Nissan could address that is to publicly admit that there were issues. But we are so confident with the CVT transmissions that we're utilizing today that above and beyond the 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty on the vehicle, we will cover the transmission portion of the vehicle for 10 years, 120,000 miles. That would stand out to people.
I think it would.
At least in my mind.
Or drop the CVT altogether.
Yeah. You know what? And I don't know how much they're paying Mr. Espinoza, but I would come on board and share that with them for a lot less. Okay? I'm just saying.
I'm sure you would. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying because, desperate times call for desperate measures.
They do.
And then also, desperate times call for people to think outside of the box. Okay. And
Agreed.
and I used to, when I ran dealerships, I used to say to my salespeople, I want you to think outside of the box. And go, what's that mean? I said, whatever you think is conventional, think of anything you want. There is no box. Okay.
Right.
Now,
Right.
speaking of thinking outside of the box, I know there are a couple of enhancements here at CarEdge that you would like to review and share with our viewing and listening audience today.
I've got a couple things
Okay.
that I can share.
I thought that was a great
We've
segue, by the way.
I love it that you did
Yeah.
it like that. That's perfect. So two things. The team's been working on a lease calculator, and as you know, 50% of buyers out there looking at new vehicles are leasing cars, and it is tough out there to really understand how a lease is calculated,
Yes.
how you get to certain numbers. Even if you have an out the door quote for a lease, how can you take that information, plug it into a calculator, and be able to understand if you're getting a fair deal? Pretty much like backtracking on it.
Yes.
And then also our vehicle listing, vehicle detail page
Yes.
got kind of a refresh. So I'll just kind of briefly go over that and show everyone what they can get out of it when they are looking at it. So I'll start with the lease calculator.
I am excited for this. Can I say one thing briefly?
Sure.
And I understand I don't say anything briefly, but this shit's this stuff's all new to me. Nobody, including my damn son, who is the CEO of this company, ever shares anything with me. It's all like a giant surprise. It's like let's just keep Ray in the dark.
Oh,
So
we don't want that.
well, it seems to have worked for 5.5 years. So, but yeah, I am so excited to see what we're doing.
Well, I'm there we go. Is that my yes? Okay. So this is not live, everybody. This is right now just showing you what currently it looks like and how we would utilize it.
Wow.
And so basically we got a lot of information kind of telling you about what leasing is, how you use it, and how this calculator can help you break down the fees and be able to show you exactly what's happening. We have some information about why you would use the calculator and what you need to use it. Now, the great thing is that you can either input a make or model, you can input a VIN. If you input a VIN, we'll be able to capture the MSRP. We'll be able to put in a selling price of what we believe is a fair selling price. Then, based on your zip code, we'll be able to populate lease terms such as residuals, money factors. These are things that most people don't know about. And this is very impactful, especially if you're negotiating a lease, because they can mark up the money factor.
Yes.
Similarly, just as when you're doing a finance on a vehicle, the dealership can mark up the interest rate, right?
Yes.
So they are able to mark up the money factor. So these are all kind of pre-populated. You get to choose what term, what mileage, and then acquisition fee. So the acquisition fee is the bank tab. Yes, everyone's talking about my tabs. I have a lot of tabs open and I do a lot of work around all these different tabs. So acquisition fee is what the bank charges. Everyone knows about dealer fees. Government fees are obviously licensing. So what I'm working to actually incorporate into here is the acquisition fee will pre-populate depending on the vehicle that you're looking at. And then also government fees are going to pre-populate depending on the state that you live in. Maintenance plans or warranties. The sales tax rate for the state will pre-populate, so you don't have to worry about that. Down payment, and then also incentives. Once putting all that information in, you'll be able to calculate it, and you'll be able to get a spot-on monthly payment.
Wow.
Now,
Very
what's great about all this too is that, again, going back to, if you get a quote from a dealership, you can reverse engineer that, right? You can come back in here and populate all of the details of the lease and be able to understand if you're getting a fair deal, or if they're marking it up, or they're adding anything within the payment that is hidden that you won't see. So I'm excited to get this out. It's going to be very helpful for 50% of the people that are looking to lease a vehicle. And
very nice.
everything in here will have information about what each one of these is, so we tell everyone exactly what you're looking at. So that's also going to be very helpful when you're utilizing this. V2 of this, Ray, is going to be, how does this compare to a finance? So the next version of this, you can imagine having two separate columns here.
Exactly.
One that would actually present you with lease calculations, but then also compare that against a finance and understand, okay, is this the best way for me to move forward in purchasing a vehicle?
I'm loving it. I think that's a wonderful tool to add to our toolbox.
Ray, we've been wanting to do this for so long, and it's taken a little bit to put this together. Lease calculators are not easy. The equations and everything else that goes in the background is quite complex, as most people think that way when they look at a lease. Like, how the heck do you interpret a lease, right? So you can imagine how the calculations go on the back end of that as well.
Very cool.
Yeah. So now we have our vehicle detail page. So when you're on our car search, and let's say, for example, you're looking for a Blazer, and hey, that red one looks good. It's great. So let's take a little bit more detailed look at it. So similarly to how the other or a prior version was, we do show MSRP, we show the invoice price, and also a target discount range if you are an Insights user. Further going down, we provided a buyer's guide. This is so awesome because not only does it give you pricing data, but it does give price history, other vehicles within the area, incentives. What's great about this is that you can actually print this out, and you could take it to the dealer if you wanted to.
Wow.
You can choose different trims. You can take a look at a market analysis, get the best deal. So this is a whole separate thing that's just coming off of the VDP, but nonetheless very helpful. How do you print that? It's actually through the browser. So I don't even think I can show it because I'm not sharing my full screen.
Hit Control P.
Yes, hit Control P. Thank you.
Isn't that how you do it?
That is how you do it, actually. Yes.
Yay! Oh my gosh! I can't believe I've learned that.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can get the window sticker straight from the VDP here. So well, that wasn't supposed to happen.
This is what happens when we do live stuff.
This is now I know how Zach feels.
Yes, yeah. Why are you getting red, Phil?
I don't know why that is. Okay. Well, we will have to get that fixed.
There'll be some Slack notes going back and forth momentarily. Yeah. Talk to the tech team. Yeah.
Yep. We'll get that done. Some market insights here that we'll graphically show in terms of our market insights, target range of what we think you should be targeting to purchase the vehicle at based on market trends. Pricing info, so you can see price history. Out the door price. What's great about this is that it will show our CarEdge target price, again, if you're an Insights user. And then, but what's great is that you can get in here and you can actually edit that.
Cool.
And you'll get an updated out the door price there.
Nicely done.
This will then come into the monthly payment calculator. You can use this to understand, what your payment will be, depending on term, interest rate, and whatnot. You can even get a real live CarMax offer for your trade,
Wow.
and get to really understand right from here what your car is worth and what a realistic value will be,
Very
and
cool.
you'll be able to put that in here. Yeah,
And is this live now?
it is live.
Very
Absolutely.
nicely done. Yeah.
Cost of ownership. Everyone likes to know cost of ownership, right?
Well, whether they like to know it or not, they should know
They
it.
should.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Especially depreciation, maintenance,
Yes.
insurance, all that, right?
Yes. That is
Um,
that to me
Incentives.
is the most important information that we share with people, and it is probably, I'm guessing, the least utilized and understood information that we share with people. If
Yep.
people really understood the cost of ownership of their vehicle based on depreciation, maintenance costs, gas costs, insurance costs, they very well might determine that it makes better financial sense to look at something else.
Yes. Yep.
Just saying. Now,
Yep.
I must say, I have an appointment with Brandon for Car Sense in a little over 48 minutes. So, not to cut you off, but
It's
I
all
have,
good.
yep, but I have to cut you off because I I have to make my way over to, well, the same seat I'm in now, but I have to change a battery so that Brandon and I can chat about whatever Brandon and I are going to chat about. Justice, if you can, before we sign off, can you play that little video that Zach put together today over in Japan, where he couldn't get over how many G-Wagons he saw when he was walking down the street? I don't know if we can do that, but we're about to find out later.
I think you can. Look at that.
Yeah, and then I don't know what that is, but that's an interesting looking four-door sedan. So I don't want you to think Zach is not doing anything car related in Japan. He's doing something to fulfill his obligations to CarEdge.
Yeah. Let's see some G-Wagons.
Bill, thank you for today. I see.
Thanks for having me, Ray.
I got to dance a little bit. Justice, thank you for producing. Mike Schwab, thank you for your bit of information there. I'll just keep bouncing in my chair. We'll be back here tomorrow at noon Eastern, 9 Pacific. I have no idea who's scheduled to be here with me tomorrow, but I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody, for being here today, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Phil.
See you, everybody. Thank you.